What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Prime Sports College Football Showdown presented by Prime Sports World. In case you're watching us, you can catch us on YouTube, Facebook, and YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And you can also catch us on the Huddle Sports Network. So you guys don't want to miss all of that content. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast here. And in case you miss us, you can catch us on all streaming platforms where podcasts can be heard. And there is a lot to go over when it comes to the college football atmosphere here and landscape. I'm your host, Israel Rivera. Here, solo dolo here for right now. Possibly Christian or Matt will be joining the show shortly, but for right now, it's just you, me, and I, baby. So me, myself, and I for the time being. But there's a lot to cover here. Pause for 1 second here. But there's a lot to cover here, ladies and gentlemen. Look, man, it was a crazy, wild rivalry weekend last weekend. And we'll get into that right here shortly. But it was, there were some teams that, just started the wildfire of plant flagging. It just turned into a total conundrum here. And I'm pretty sure the NCAA will say something about that when the time has come. But, yeah, it started with the Michigan-Ohio State game. And we'll just get right into it as Michigan upsetted number 2 Ohio State. This was a very nip and tuck game, as everybody knows. Michigan just came out and they were just tougher, more in shape, and they just beat Ohio State to the punch. Like Christian likes to say, the bully don't like to get bullied. And that's exactly what happened as Michigan beat Ohio State for the 4th straight time in this incredible rivalry. This is one of the rivalries that, is probably one of the greatest rivalries of all time when you look at, the sporting era. But, yeah, Will Howard, 19-33, 175 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. And I mean, he threw, a bad one early on. He threw a bad one later on in the game. And also, I mean, Davis Warren threw a bad one, right? When you look at it, Michigan probably should have won by 10 points when I look at it. But Michigan came out the more physical team. They ran the ball again, with ease against this Ohio State defense for a team total 172 yards. Khalil Mullins, 32 carries, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then on the other side, I mean, you got all that talent. Quinshon Judkins, 46 yards. Trayvon Henderson, 21 yards. They only ran the ball 26 times to Michigan's 42 times. We already know Michigan, with the lack of quarterback play, really hasn't been that, passing team like they were in previous seasons. I mean, their identity was, to run the football and play off of play action. But they really are committed to the run this year without a true quarterback or a true number 1 quarterback. And they took advantage of it. Those linemen were moving Ohio State's front 7, getting to the second level. And then when you look at it, I thought early on, Ohio State, tried to assert their dominance on the outside with, the talent on the outside with Carnell Tate, Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith, right? They know they had the mismatch there. They knew they had a mismatch there. But the problem is that once Michigan started to really hone down in on what they were doing on the outside, Ohio State just never made adjustments. Ryan Day never made them adjustments. And I'll say this. Ohio State didn't get knocked out the college football playoff. They're still in. They did get knocked out of the Big Ten title game. Penn State's in. So, it's whatever. Ohio State's not going to go for the Big Ten title. They don't get the rematch at Oregon, but they still make it to the CFP. They are projected to get – we'll get into projections. They're projected to get a home game still. And Michigan, this is just a big win for team morale, for program morale, right? Moving forward. I mean, a lot of recruits, were watching this game. They're probably flipping over to Michigan at this point. But this was a big win for Coach Moore and the program to keep winning, to keep beating Ohio State. And Ryan Day, let's get to him. If you can't beat Ohio State, I know Jim Harbaugh went through this for a long time, but at Ohio State, it's even I think it's a little bit more intensified. I think it's both intensified on both sides. But for Ryan Day, it's like you haven't beat Ohio State. Like you're not good. You haven't been great, in this game. And it's kind of like Bears Packers, right? Like the number one thing, Matt LaFleur, the number one thing that any bad Bears coach, like when Lovey got the Bears job a long time ago, he's like, man, the only thing I want to do is, one of his main goals every season was to win the NFC North and to beat the Green Bay Packers. You know what I mean? Like, we got to beat the Green Bay Packers, right? So Ohio State, Michigan, it's like we want to win the Big Ten title, but we really, really want to beat Ohio State. We really, really want to beat Michigan. If you can't do that, I mean, Harbaugh was on the hot seat for all those years before he started beating them a few years back. And then now Ryan Day has got to be on the hot seat. I think Ryan Day, if he doesn't have a tournament run, I'm not saying necessarily he has to win a national title, but Ryan Day definitely has to have a long tournament run with the Ohio State Buckeyes. I'm talking about you have to make it at least to the semis in order to keep your job. If you can't make it to the semis, I think you're done. I think he's done. I think somebody else is going to come in. And I've heard rumors that Urban Meyer was interested in coming back to Ohio State, so that would be big for that program if they were able to get Urban Meyer back into the fold. But, yeah, Ryan Day's days are numbered in Ohio State just simply off the fact that he can't beat Michigan. And when you can't beat your rival at this magnitude, they programs show you the door. And, that's exactly what I think is going to happen to Ryan Day. But Ohio State moves in. They're still in the college football playoffs, so nothing to be here ashamed of for there is something to be ashamed of for Ohio State because if Michigan, this is one thing about Michigan. They had a really good roster this year outside of the quarterback position. If they had an adequate quarterback, any quarterback that can, let's say Michigan had – let's say Michigan had the Indiana quarterback. It's a bad example. That's a bad example. Let's say Michigan had the quarterback from like Duke or something like that. They'd actually be a top 5 team, in my opinion. Let's say Michigan had definitely if they had K. Clemson, they'd be a top 5 team. I would never say Alan Bowman. I would never say Bowman from Oklahoma State. But if Michigan had a good quarterback, they'd be up there in the standings. Top 10 in the standings. I'm trying to think of any other pretty solid quarterback that I could think of that's probably in the top 25 that would be adequate for Michigan. Like just any quarterback that can sling it, any quarterback that can do what it do. Shoot, if they had Pittman, they had a kid from Arizona State, the freshman, they'd be a top 10 team in my opinion because he's an adequate quarterback. Like they don't have a great quarterback play. They have zero quarterback play in that. And if they had Illinois' quarterback, they might be solid. God dang it, I'm not even going to go as far as to say Wisconsin's quarterback. Wisconsin's quarterback is I don't know what they're going to do with that position. But anyways, moving on to the next headline. Syracuse upsetted Miami, and this is a Miami team I've watched closely all season long, and they really toted the line all season long with like close wins, comeback wins. There's a couple times they probably should have lost early on in the season, but they did lose to a pretty decent, a good Georgia Tech team who took Georgia to 7 overtimes, last week, and on Friday, took Georgia to 7 OTs on Friday. So that's the team that Miami lost. It was a tough Georgia Tech team, very tough Georgia Tech team, and then they lose to a very a 9-3 Syracuse Orange team. on the road in the Carrier Dome. That's what I still call it. I think it's called the JMA Wireless Dome or something like that. But anyways, it gets loud in there. We all know the basketball team plays in there. It gets loud in there too when they play basketball. And so, the fans are right on you. Kyle McCord threw for 3 touchdowns, 26 to 36, 380 yards. He was absolutely fantastic. LaQuint Allen, 2 carries, 82 yards, 2 touchdowns. Trevor Pena, 6 receptions, 128 yards, and a touchdown. At Syracuse, just outlasted Miami in this game. Cam Ward was pretty good, 25 to 36, 249 yards, 2 touchdowns. Nothing to hang his hat on. Xavier Restrepo continues to have a historic career at Miami with 9 receptions, 148 yards, and a touchdown against Syracuse. But I will say this. This is one thing that always plagued Miami all season long, and that was the defense. The defense was just no good all season long. They could never get over the hump. I mean, they could never make adequate stops, to be able to win you they got away with it in certain games. But, they had trouble. They had trouble against Georgia Tech in that rushing offense. They obviously had trouble with, obviously had trouble with Syracuse in this game in terms of their rushing attack and their passing attack on the outside. They gave up too many big plays. And it just was, one of those games where, you wish Miami won because, they left the door open for Alabama to sneak in and take their place and take a place. And they got kicked out of the ACC title game. Clemson's playing in the ACC title game now, even though despite losing to South Carolina, which I think South Carolina, if they didn't lose to LSU early on in the season with that, late hit, the hit on the quarterback on the interception return, unnecessary roughness play, I think South Carolina gets into that game. South Carolina has a very, very, very strong resume to get into the college football playoff with 2 losses only. Instead, they got 3 losses, but they came out real strong. Shane Beamer, that team, he's got a good quarterback on his hands in Lenora Sellers, but that team was pretty talented this year. They beat Clemson. Clemson still gets in going against SMU in the ACC title game. So now Miami's kind of left to kind of wonder, how do they get in, right? How do they get in? And I think your only chance of Miami maybe possibly sneaking in here is if Georgia loses to Texas in the SEC title game. I think Miami sneaks in because that kicks Alabama out, right? Because you're putting in Alabama based on the fact that, they have a stronger win-loss resume than Miami, but you cannot put in 2 3-loss teams in the playoff. That's uncalled for. That's unheard of. I think it's you're going down like, I think it's very asinine to say that we're going to put in 2 3-loss teams in this bracket, when it's all said and done. I think Miami should get in. Yes, they did lose 2 games. They should have never lost two games late in the season. Late in the season, you should not lose 2 games late in the season like that, especially the 2 unranked teams. Well, Syracuse now is ranked because of it. They were on the outside looking in the top 25 the week before or the week of. But it's one of those things. You leave the door open. And bad things happen. And Miami did. And they were having a very special season. Cam Ward was having a special season. He was leading the NCAA in passing yards and touchdowns. And he was just he's going to be a top 2 quarterback. It's going to be Shador and him going out as the top 2 quarterbacks in the NFL draft, this upcoming draft. And so you kind of feel for that team. They have, an immense amount of talent there in Miami, great running backs. They got, really good wide receivers, and so it's in Zay Horton and you got Sam Brown, you got Xavier Restrepo, and you got, it goes on and on all the way down to, the tight ends are pretty damn good in Miami. And it just Elijah Arroyo, it just kind of hurts. Jacoby George is another one. It just hurts. I hurt for those guys. I watched them all season. And so hopefully Miami can get in. I think they have a strong case, 2-loss team to get in They were dominate most of the season. They just kind of fell ways. And I think you can't put 2-3 loss teams in the tournament in the bracket in the college football playoff. You just can't. The committee shouldn't. But anyways, moving on to the last topic. And this one's kind of across the landscape here is the flag planting. It started multiple brawls across rivalry. It started with Michigan and Ohio State, with Michigan planting their flag there. And then it just kind of, started as wildfire. I don't know if these other teams kind of watched. It's rivalry week, so they're going to plant whatever they want. If they win, if they beat you in their house, they're in your house, they're going to plant that flag. So, we had, something, Penn State and Maryland had a little between the coaches, but that wasn't like a brawl there. But there was a brawl with Florida and Florida State. Florida planted their flag in the middle. Florida State and Florida and them were brawling. Alabama, Auburn had a scuffle. Arizona State and Arizona had a scuffle. Godly, there was a couple others. There's one big one where it was. I'm trying to look for it right now. Totally just escaping my mind here. But there was another big one. It was kind of like right after that Michigan Ohio State game, where it was just a crazy. It was a crazy brawl in the middle of the field, and it was just like a lot of people were saying that flag planting shouldn't be allowed, and it should be banned. It was a NC State, North Carolina. Sorry about that. NC State, North Carolina. I think it's Mac Brown's last game. So I think I gotta say this. When it comes to flag planting, I think the away team that wins should be able to do something like that, right? You're already in trouble. They should be able to plant their flag. Hey, I took Stockholm. I stake place in here. And hey, you know what? If they fight, they fight. But you know what? The fighting should happen on the field. If you were so worried about them planting that flag, maybe you should have won the football game. Maybe you should have tried a little harder to win that football game. I don't have a problem with it. I think that's what it comes with. That's the territory that comes with rivalry week, is that I should be able to plant my damn flag at the 50-yard line on your mascot and stake hold of this place because I beat you. It was all year. It came down to this. We were chirping. We got friends in each county and each school. We're talking smack to each other on Twitter and all this other stuff and on Facebook or whatever the case is. We should be able to show off after we win. And I think there's no problem with that. But I think the NCAA will ban flag planting. And I think that, there will be some type of levying or some type of fine against the schools if, that participate in that. And it's sad that might come down to that next season. But I do think that will happen. But I don't agree with it. I agree that I think that if you are a team that wins the football game, you should be able to plant your flag where the freak ever you want to. And that's it. That's point blank. That's point blank. And, hopefully NCAA doesn't get too harsh on it. But it did start multiple brawls across rivalry week. And then moving on to the CFP bracket. I believe this is the fourth week here of the CFP bracket. And then we're going into the championship games. And that will be the end of that. And some things will move around. Some teams won't be in. Some teams will be in. So right now, currently, you have Oregon at 1, Texas at 2, SMU at 3, and Boise State at 4, getting the first round bye. Boise State plays in the Mountain West Championship game tonight. That one's usually played at home, not on neutral site field. That one's going to be in Boise, Idaho, against the UNLV Running Rebels. If you know about that game earlier in the season, that was a close game between UNLV and Boise State. So you guys tune in to watch that game. But Boise State has, if they lose that game, they still get in. But I think they'll move to like the 12th slot or something like that. Because, the top, 9 Power 4 conference gets in there, right? Boise State will still be that. Or maybe it will be UNLV, but I think Boise State will still be that. But I think the team that does have to win is SMU. SMU has to win. SMU has to win that football game against Clemson. Clemson knows they win, they're in, obviously, because it's the ACC title game, and they in the conference champions of Power 4 get in. But SMU has no wiggle room, right? They lost one game this season early on to BYU against, at home. But this is a team that they have to win this football game. I think they have no room for error. You cannot lose this football game against Clemson and give the committee a chance to put Alabama in there or some other 3-loss team from the SEC in there, because they will do it. They will do it, and they will only say only one. They're already saying only one ACC team's getting in, right? They're already saying one ACC team is getting in because the proof is in the pudding. Miami is not in there. I will say this, though. If they do lose to Clemson gets in, it's going to be hard to say, hey, who do we pick between SMU and Miami, especially if Georgia, if Texas beats Georgia, right? Because now I'm thinking Alabama, you're out. Georgia kind of moves into that slot where Alabama's going to be at, right? Tennessee, Ohio State, Notre Dame, they're locked in. Arizona State still has to win against Iowa State. I think that one's nip and tuck right there. Whoever wins that's going to get the 12th slot, right? So Iowa State, Arizona State, they're going to get the 12th slot, correct? Unless Boise State, loses, then they move into, I think, a top 4. Obviously, they're going to move into the top 4. If Boise State loses, the Big 12 champion is moving into the top 4. Is moving into the top 4. And let's say Clemson wins. I don't know. Does Clemson get a top 4 slot as the ACC title winner? I think so. So this is gonna be a very sticky situation come time to championship Saturday here. But I will say this: SMU, it's gonna be sticky if they lose to Clemson. It depends on how they lose to Clemson. They get blown out by Clemson. I don't know if it really matters if the points, but I think it should. And I think that, look, if we're going to talk about 2-loss teams, Miami and SMU, I think Miami should get in over SMU, but the committee may not say so. You got a lot of committee members that, a lot of dollars out there in Dallas-Fort Worth, right? Well, who knows? But it's a sticky situation. It's a sticky situation because Indiana don't play, Bama don't play, Notre Dame don't play. Bama's really hoping that Georgia can win. Bama's really hoping that Georgia can win. Georgia slides in, Texas slides out, Bama stays in. Georgia loses, Bama, you're out. Bama, you're out. SMU loses, Bama, you're out. Bama's out. So they got to hope that SMU wins. And they got to hope that Georgia, Georgia wins still, in my opinion. Because there's no way that they're going to put 2 3-loss teams in the college football playoff. I don't see it. So anyways, looking at these matchups right now as it stands, I got Arizona State over Penn State, even though they'll play in Penn State. I like Arizona State over Penn State just because of the fact that they got 2 guys, Jordan Tyson and Cam Scatterbull. I love that kid out of the backfield. He's a power running back. He does it all for them. Tennessee, Ohio State, I like Ohio State, despite as much as it hurts me to say that. I think Ohio State can beat Tennessee at the shoe. Alabama, Notre Dame. Notre Dame is on a mission from God right now. They have been blowing out teams ever since they lost in Northern Illinois. I think Alabama going into South Bend, it's cold. Look, man, I'm from Chicago. Look, it's cold out here, bro. It's cold out here. Night game, 13 degrees, 14 degrees, 20 degrees, 20 below. Look, fam, I know Alabama went into Wisconsin and beat Wisconsin in Camp Randall early on in the year, but you're not going into Notre Dame late in the season when it's cold and the crowd is crazy. You're not going into Notre Dame winning that football game. I'm sorry. I don't care. You're not built like that, buddy. Notre Dame's winning that game. And then Indiana, Georgia. I like Georgia to just lay the smackdown on Indiana. That is not even going to be a close game. But that's if it stands today. This is going to change dramatically. I think this is going to change tenfold. I think the odd man out is unfortunately, is going to be Miami, man. Unfortunately, I think is, because I think, the committee is going to say, oh, SMU at least made it to the title game, especially if they lose to Clemson. Clemson gets in, and they say, you know what, SMU's got to stay in. Alabama gets kicked out. I think Texas beats Georgia. Alabama gets kicked out. SMU stays in. Clemson takes the ACC title game, ACC lock in. And I think all of this kind of just fluctuates. Iowa State, obviously, you're winning, you're in. Arizona State and Iowa State, you're winning, you're in. You win and you're in to the CFP. So, this is going to be, quite interesting. Obviously, when you look at Penn State and Oregon, obviously Texas wins. Texas number 1 seed overall. But, obviously if Oregon loses, Penn State gets, probably number 2 or number 3. Boise State losing, that's a big one too. I think they get in still if they lose. So going to be interesting here coming down the stretch here for Championship Saturday. And moving on to the weekend's games, the championship weekend games to watch. And I'll start with the Big 12 title game, number 15, Iowa State going up against Arizona State. And this is pretty much a pick 'em. Guys. Pretty much a pick 'em. Who do you like the best, right? Who do you think is going to win the best in this title game? Sorry about that. Who do you think is going to win in the title game here? It's a pick 'em. I think when it comes down to it, I like Arizona State to still win this football game against Iowa State. That's going to bring, smiles to my guy, Matt James, here. And I'll tell you, man, this is as even as it comes, right? This is as even as it comes. I like Iowa State's defense, but I like Sam Levitt. I like Cam Scatterboo. I like Jordan Tyson. I like those guys. When it comes to Iowa State, I just think that Iowa State defense is really, really good. Cam Scatterboo over 1,300 yards, almost 1,400 yards rushing, 17 touchdowns. That's 3rd in the Big 12, 8th in the nation. But the Cyclones, they one of the best defenses. They're the top 20 defense, only allowing 173 rushing yards per game. This team is pretty damn this team is pretty damn good. But they are to have in that rushing game though. They are to have in that rushing game. 173.7 yards. Cam Scatterboo, and that's why I like Arizona State, because Cam Scatterboo is going to have a great game against them. But this is a team that, hey, I'll tell you this, man. These guys from Iowa State, they can ball out, especially in the defensive backfield. This team can ball out. They also have 2 wide receivers that are pretty talented, in Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, 2 guys. That have reached the century mark in yards in the same season. But yeah, give me Arizona State just because I like that Arizona State team, man. I think that this team is destined to win. This is going to be in Jerry's World in the Big 12 title in Dallas, Texas. Give me Arizona State to win that football game and move on to the college football playoff. And then we have the ACC title game. In this game, Tristan has already announced and put on his website on the dailyblitz.blog. So you guys want to catch it. Don't want to miss that article. But he has SMU winning 32-24 against Clemson. He's got SMU punching their ticket and being a top 4 seed in the college football playoff. His X factors: Barrett Carter for Clemson. He's a defensive player, a tackle machine for Clemson, as it says. And then SMU's X factor for Christian is Roderick Daniels Jr. He's a guy that he's a hell of a wide receiver. He's a guy that can catch football and make plays in that game. If I'm gonna pick a team that's going to win, hey, give me the Ponies, man. It's been a long time coming since the Ponies were, since the 80s, since they had Eric Dickerson, since they were in a national championship contending picture. This one's going to be a hell of a game. We know Dabo's last couple of years track record hasn't really been great in big games. But this is another big game. This is a legacy one for Kate Klubnik right here. If he can beat SMU, the odds are SMU by 2.5. So that's pretty razor thin right there. Kevin Jennings has had a hell of a season for SMU so far. But this is gonna be one of those games that I think is gonna be closer than you think. Obviously it's a 3 point, 2.5 point spread here in this game. Christian thinks they're gonna win by 10. I think it'll be about that 3.5 point or that 2.5 point spread. You come down to a field goal, come down to maybe an extra point, come down to whoever has the last ball. But it's going to be one of those games here. Give me SMU to win that game. And then the Big Ten title game between Penn State and Oregon. And Christian just released this one. And this one is on his website. You can catch that on the Daily Blitz blog. But he's got Oregon beating Penn State 34-21. He's got Penn State's X factor is Abdul Carter. He's a versatile edge rusher that can really get after the quarterback. And then Oregon's X factor, he's got Tez Johnson. He's a hell of a wide receiver for Dylan Gabriel and the Oregon Ducks. I think I got the Oregon Ducks as well. I mean, this is they're just too good. Dylan Gabriel has been. He's in the perfect offense in Dan Lanny's offense. Jordan James has been an excellent, one of the best running backs in the nation, over 1,100 yards. There's another guy, though, that Oregon has to watch out for, and that's Tyler Warren, right? Drew Allard likes to look for that big tight end down there in Penn State. The spread is 3.5 for Oregon. I'm going to go Oregon by 7 points in this game against Penn State. Christian's got them by 2 touchdowns in this game, so you guys don't want to miss that hot content that Christian drops. I can drop that link down there for you guys to watch, to read that article here in the game. And before we get to the game of the week, we're going to do a little pausing for station identification. This is Prime Sports World on the Huddle Sports Network, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to the Huddle Sports Network, where we're breaking boundaries and redefining podcasting. Broadcasting live on 6 different platforms, we're bringing you the latest in sports like never before. Imagine tuning into real-time discussions, expert analyses, and fan interactions all at your fingertips. Each platform offers a unique experience, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. We're not just sharing stories, we're creating a community of passionate sports enthusiasts. Join us as we dive deep into the evolution of podcasting, where every episode is a chance to engage, debate, and celebrate the world of sports. This is where your voice matters and the game never stops. Welcome to the Huddle Sports Network, where we're breaking boundaries and redefining podcasting. Broadcasting live on 6 different platforms, we're bringing you the latest in sports like never before, where sports passion meets podcasting brilliance. I'm Mike, the Bear fan, and alongside Bill, the Packer fan, and our buddy Ken Catalone, we're bringing you an incredible lineup of 38 diverse podcasters. Each one brings their unique flavor to the table, covering everything from game analysis to behind-the-scenes stories. Imagine diving deep into the minds of experts who live and breathe football, sharing insights that you won't find anywhere else.
And moving on to the SEC title game, and that is the game of the week, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm pretty sure that will be Christian's shameless. Like, I just feel it. I know that Christian is going to have this as his shameless plug. So y'all better be in tune for this game. He drops that article an hour before game time. I'm pretty sure it will be on the huddle at 2 p.m. So you guys don't want to miss that game, between that preview from Christian between Georgia and Texas. But in this game, Texas is a 2.5 point spread. This is going to be a doozy, right? Both these teams already played before, right? Georgia already beat Texas 30-15. So this is, Texas's get back game here, and they beat them in Texas as well. So this is a get back game here for Texas. Going up against the Georgia Bulldogs. And so, I do believe that, this is going to be one of those games where it's going to come down to the wire, where it's, whoever is the last team to have the ball wins the football game. I think one of the key matchups is, obviously, can Carson Beck have, a game that we know he can have, right? He struggled, early part of the season, later part of the season, didn't really look too great, against even Georgia Tech, last week, even though they went to 7 OTs, right? But, he had 5 touchdowns in that game, but it was, it was still one of those games where early on in the, they had to come back to win. And early on, that offense just didn't look good. But he put the team on his shoulders. Last 3 games, Tennessee, obviously UMass is last 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. The 3 games before that, though, 7 picks, 2 touchdowns, 7 picks. Even he had 3 picks in the game against Texas. So that's going to be a big thing, right? If he plays poorly and Texas can't get it, Georgia can't get it going, it's going to be a tough time sledding. I think this time around, I think Texas will be a little bit more prepared. When it came down to it, Trevor Etienne, they had the run game going. Trevor Etienne had 3 rushing touchdowns. They were able to get it going. Texas was not able to get it going rushing the football. And I think that was, Quinn Ewers, I think, I want to say one of his first games back. He was still a little rusty. Now Quinn Ewers has got a little bit more momentum. He's got a little bit more. He's a little healthier now. Nobody in this stage of the season is fully healthy. But I mean, when you look at it, man, Quintrevion Wisner, he has to get it going. Only 15 carries, 52 yards. In this game. And also they have to do a better job at just protecting Quinn Ewers in this game. In that last game, Georgia had 7 sacks as a team. So they were able to get after the quarterback against Texas, and they have to do a better job of protecting Quinn Ewers, because the last game they weren't able to do so, and Georgia was able to, get off to that big lead that we saw. I think it was a 20. I think at halftime it was 23-0, and then Texas scored 15 in the third quarter to kind of bring it in between to 8 points. But then all Georgia needed to do was score one more touchdown to put it out. Texas just could not get it going against them. But like I said, there's 2 sides of it. Carson Beck needs to play a lot better, and he has played a lot better. I mentioned it, 11 touchdowns in the last 3 games, and then. Quinn Ewers, Texas has to do a better job at protecting Quinn Ewers, from the Georgia pass rush. This is going to be a hell of a game. It's a 3.5 point. I think it's a 3.5 point spread here, but I'll take the points. If I'm a betting man, I'm taking the points for Georgia. I think Georgia's able to win this football game again. I think they can sweep Texas and win the SEC title again, especially in a neutral environment such as Atlanta, Georgia. There's going to be a number of Georgia fans there. I mean, they're going to have even though it's a neutral environment, they're going to have more Georgia fans there than Texas fans. Even though Texas fans travel, it's still in the state of Georgia. And Atlanta loves the Georgia Bulldogs. I'll tell you that right now. So I got Georgia, actually. I'll take the plus 2.5 for Georgia to win this football game. And you guys probably don't want to miss Christian's preview of this game coming up here tomorrow at 2 p.m. So you guys don't want to miss that. This is a link to the Oregon game, but it is at thedailyblitz.blog. And before we wrap this up, we always do the Heisman rankings here, and it ain't changed. It's a two-man race. It's Ashton Jeanty who's playing tonight. Travis Hunter doesn't have any more games to play before the bowl game. Deion Sanders has said that he will play in a bowl game. Him and Shedeur Sanders will play in a bowl game. So you guys watch out for that. But the Heisman will be, wrapped up before then. I think it's going to be Ashton Jeanty winning, and I think he puts a cherry on top tonight against UNLV. But it's Ashton Jeanty, Travis Hunter, and just everyone else. Invite 2 other people. Who doesn't matter? Doesn't matter. You just might as well just invite those 2 because it's going to be a 2-man race regardless. But anyways, that has been a wrap, ladies and gentlemen, for College Football Showdown here, presented by Prime Sports World on the Huddle Sports Network. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast here at Prime Sports World on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And in case you missed us, you can catch us live on all streaming platforms where podcasts can be heard. And catch us on all your Roku devices and your Amazon devices on the Huddle Sports Network. So you guys don't want to miss all of that great content as Prime Sports World keeps it locked in 24/7, 360 degrees access around the world, baby. And yes, solo dolo tonight, but we will be back on Monday with our week 13 reviews, week 14 reviews of the NFL, week 13 review of the NFL season. So you guys don't want to miss that on Monday. But anyways, I'm Israel Rivera, aka Izzy, here. And in case I missed you, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, ladies and gentlemen. Sayonara, suckers. See you till next.